31 years ago, their son went missing after school and they found him at a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Connecticut. It's time to uncover the truth and answer her questions. Lyneth had gone through something so terrible, and she wouldn't wish it on her worst enemy. Leaving the safety of her home in Canada, Lyneth made her way to Connecticut Airport. Arriving at the pickup area, she held on to optimism, hoping to finally gain clarity about her son's disappearance. After 3-4 years, she finally found peace. On a warm summer day in June 1987, Lyneth arrived north of Toronto, a dollar store on Islington Avenue. Her intention was to pick up her son Jermaine, whose father Alan had arranged to meet her there at 6 p.m. when Jermaine's parents separated and he was just a baby. Yet despite this, Jermaine was still a happy child whose smile and laughter could light up any room. Lyneth couldn't wait to see him. She didn't know the tragedy that awaited her. On this day, Lyneth goes about her daily activities and enjoys her time without children. She went grocery shopping and even bought Jermaine a toy that was a stuffed lion with big brown eyes just like Jermaine, and lions were his favorite. She knew he'd love it, but she didn't know her world was about to collapse. As the clock struck 6 p.m., Lyneth noticed a family laughing across the street. Smiling and enjoying each other's company, she couldn't help but smile at herself. The strange thing is that the little boy clinging to his father's shoulder bears a striking resemblance to her own son, and he waves at Lyneth and she waves back and looks, and it's 死点你就分, where are they? As the hours passed, a terrible feeling grew in her stomach, and by 4 p.m. Lyneth's heart was pounding and Alan and Jermaine had not yet appeared. In a panic, Lyneth stumbled to the floor, dropping the toy she had picked out for Jermaine. She quickly got up and rushed to her car and called 911 as she sped away, leaving behind a cloud of smoke and Jermaine's teddy bear. There was silence in Lyneth's empty home. Sitting in the kitchen, her eyes ached and her head throbbed. She had been eagerly looking forward to seeing her little boy and presenting him with his teddy bear since she had waited 48 hours at the dollar store. But now she had neither son nor his cherished toys. Months and years had passed before she knew it, and she was sitting alone in her desolate home commemorating Jermaine's birthday. She can't accept that this is her reality. Many agencies have worked over the years to solve Jermaine's disappearance, but there have been no leads, and even the Missing Children's Society of Canada (MCSC) got involved, but they couldn't find any trace of Jermaine. All Lyneth had in her head were some memories and some images of her son, but she refused to give up. She appeared in the Toronto Star in 1948 小时, hoping to draw more attention to the suspicion that Ellen had kidnapped Jermaine and brought him to the United States, but there was no conclusive evidence. But soon a crack appeared in this heartbreaking case that changed everything. Across the border in the United States, people are equally committed to solving the mystery of Jermaine's disappearance.
His story is featured in the Tari Project.
It's a database dedicated to publishing missing persons cases in the United States, and unfortunately it's still not giving police a lead. Despite the challenges, one man remains steadfast in his search for Jermaine. Ted Davis, a former police officer, was involved in the MCSC investigation. He met with Lyneth and witnessed the pain in her heart, and he assured Lyneth and her family that he would do everything he could to bring Jermaine home. Finally, in 2016, nearly 3 years after Jermaine disappeared, there was a breakthrough in the case that spanned 3-4 years. That same year, Ted attended a meeting with members of the Toronto Police and representatives of the United States when they discussed Jermaine's disappearance. Little did Ted know that these discussions would lead investigators to new leads. Until the late summer of 2018, investigators contacted several of Ellen's acquaintances. They hope that talking to each person will glean important information. Some believe Ellen may have been living in Connecticut, 500 miles east of Toronto. It wasn't until they talked to one of Alan's closest friends that they got a crucial clue that eventually led the police to Jermaine. According to the friend, Alan created a new identity using the name Haley Randolph de Souza, and with that information, police knew they were one step closer to Jermaine's whereabouts. They searched official databases and social media, and finally they found a match: an elderly man who lived in Vernon, Connecticut, near Hartford. Could it be them? If so, does that mean Jermaine is still alive? When the mystery was finally solved, investigators called in forensic experts to help with the case. They examined the driver's license photo of D'Souza's son in October and the team confirmed their hopes. D'Souza's son and Jermaine were likely the same person. They had a game, but first they need to arrest Alan. The detectives were thrilled to have an answer. They knew they had to find Alan soon before it was too late. According to anonymous sources, Alan frequented the local KFC and had a strong affinity for food and was friendly with staff, so investigators went to KFC to try to bring Alan to justice and hold him accountable for his crimes. But will they succeed? As police in Connecticut stormed the KFC restaurant, one of them shouted, "We raid the police." The team scanned the room as bewildered staff looked on. Then they noticed an old man sitting in the corner who raised his hands to confirm that he was the wanted fugitive. But where is Jermaine? Police suspect Alan fled Toronto for the United States with Jermaine in Ijubaru. They had reportedly shared an apartment in Connecticut since and after handcuffing Alan, police escorted him outside and they heard a noise. Father. Suddenly a middle-aged man with big brown eyes like Jermaine came around the corner. What Jermaine didn't know was that he and his father had been living a lie for decades after fleeing Canada, and Alan had managed to obtain false identity documents to live in New York, North Carolina. He eventually settled in Connecticut. Alan worked as a truck driver and engineer in Vernon, and Jermaine had a job in the state. Jermaine didn't know his whole life was built on a lie, and Jermaine spent his whole life thinking about his mother. His father told him she had died in childbirth, but the details were never clear. Jermaine saw friends being picked up from school by their mother, something he had never experienced before, and his curiosity grew. It wasn't until he was 30 that the truth about his mother came to light. Jermaine stood in court in tears as his father's lies and deceit were exposed. How could his father have done such a thing? His heart sank when he learned that Alan would not face kidnapping charges. Instead, he'll be extradited to Canada to face additional charges. As he left the courtroom, Jermaine didn't know what to say. A million questions raced through his mind, but suddenly he realized his mother was alive. After a phone conversation with Ted and Lynette couldn't speak. They found Jermaine. Her son is alive and well. She had waited 30 years for this moment, and Lynette broke down with tears streaming down her face as she longed to see her son again. In the waiting area of the Connecticut airport, Lynette is preparing for a reunion with his son after 30 years. Suddenly a tall, dark figure appeared and walked toward Lynette. She immediately recognized the face and those big brown eyes, and her heart skipped a beat as her son was Jermaine.
Lynette and Jermaine ran to each other and fought passionately with tears streaming down their faces.
They were both crying and emotionally overwhelmed as they hugged each other with countless questions swirling through their minds. But at that moment they just clung to each other and refused to let go. Mother and son treasured their time together and relished the prospect of being reunited in life. Well, for Lynette and Jermaine, it seems they didn't care when their father lied about Jermaine's death, even though there were photographers and reporters around.
It was that moment when the local police department took charge of the case. The really number someone many but so shocked by the audacity of her treasure swap.
People have expressed their support in a variety of ways aimed at raising awareness about the widespread kidnapping problem in the United States. Lynette expressed gratitude to the Canadian Society for Missing Children and U.S. officials for their tireless efforts to find her son. She sought their help and became part of the team. The Toronto Police Service played a vital role in uncovering clues and determining Alan's true whereabouts. Don't lose hope of finding them. I'm a living example of that. After 30 years of suffering, one should never give up. Linus tried to stay strong during the interview, but the memory of the traumatic event 30 years ago is for him. It's very emotional. Although he was clearly grieving, it triggered a series of emotions in him, but he offered hope to those at the news conference. The story was the talk of the town for the next few days. The Toronto Police Service is being recognized for its involvement in finding the boy, and in an interview the distraught mother shared, "I want to encourage other families with missing children and loved ones."
But patient can be strong and believe that anything is possible, anything can happen.
The final charge against Alan Mann was making a false statement and obtaining HUD housing by false statement because they couldn't legally convict him of kidnapping because it involved his son. Crime is more about forging identities and using them to build a new one. The level of secrecy he keeps about his true identity is reminiscent of what Alan does to Jermaine and Linus in the spy movies, which is undoubtedly inhuman. He acted selfishly without considering the consequences of his crime. He took a lot of risks to ensure the legitimacy of government documents that allowed him to elude capture for years. Alan Mann is currently being extradited to Canada, where he could face additional charges, and many who have followed the case believe his sentence was too lenient and weak. The lawyers in the case are still working to secure his release with good behavior, so let's stay tuned to what happens next. He deserves a longer sentence for the pain and trauma he caused Linus. What's amazing is that Alan has remained silent and humble throughout this trial, and many believe he's self-righteous, as if he's already achieved what he wanted. It didn't matter for him to go to prison. Although Alan may have been seen as a cruel man, he must have had some love he wanted to have with his son. He spent the best years of his life with his only son. He became the boy's only source of support. During that time, Jermaine had relied on him completely, and although his father had manipulated him into falling in love with him, Alan got his wish, and now it was up to the state to decide his fate. Some people think he should get the harshest punishment, while others think he should be strictly locked down. We all have our opinions, but at the end of the day, it's for the referee to decide. Jermaine and his mother are still in touch. They've been working to rebuild their relationship, and it's been a challenging journey for both of them, but Lynette's maternal instincts are still strong. She always remembered her son, and she thought of him every day as her last wish to see him before she died. She prayed for him every day.
As a mother, she could never understand why God was so cruel. Took her only child.
She's been lost and confused for years, and now she finally feels like she can breathe. But she had to do it in front of so many strangers. Lynette is still active with Missing Children Canada. Fortunately, many cases were solved, but countless children were never reunited with their parents. The statistics are shocking and continue to grow. If parents have young children, they must take extra precautions.
Unfortunately, the context must be done on any Saturday care provider.
We live in a world where no one can be trusted, and this story reminds us how important it is to strive for a happy and healthy family. The conflict between the parents ends up ruining the life of an innocent child who will never get back the years he lost, but will remember him as another stereotype.
To be the victim of one of the countless mentally disabled people who roam freely on the streets of America.
Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Thank you for your support.